Hi, I'm Deronda, and today I am making a single pie crust. It will fit an 8 by 9 inch pie pan. I'm going to start off with 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt. I use kosher salt, shortening, which is a vegetable shortening. It's a solid vegetable shortening, and I cut in 3 tablespoons at a time. You're going to need 6 tablespoons, and also fresh ice cold water. Now to my bowl here, I'm going to add my cup of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add my teaspoon of salt. Actually, that was a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to add in my shortening. It's an all vegetable shortening. Make sure it's very cold. You could either cut this shortening in by 2 knives, going back and forth, working the shortening in to the flour, or you can use a fork. But the tool that I enjoy using happens to be this handy dandy pastry tool that cuts in the shortening very quickly. The first 3 tablespoons of shortening you're going to use, you want to cut this into your flour until your flour looks like cornmeal. This is what your all-purpose flour and all-purpose vegetable shortening should look like after the first 3 tablespoons. Now it's time to add the next 3 tablespoons. Add it right in. And now you're going to cut into your flour until you have a pea size looking cornmeal. This is the texture of your pie dough after cutting in the last 3 tablespoons of all-purpose shortening. Now it's time to add the water. And when you do add the water, you're only adding 1 tablespoon at a time. Just add 1 tablespoon at a time. Give it a toss and keep doing this until it forms a ball. It'll form a dough ball. Usually you'll add no more than 4 to 5 tablespoons. I've added 4 tablespoons into the dough, and see how the dough is pulling away from the bowl. Now it's time to get the dough out. Get all your dough out of there and make it into a ball. Just kind of toss it around to get all the air pockets out. And now we're ready to roll the dough out on a floured surface. Now just lightly flour a flat surface, okay? And put your pie crust dough right in the center. Work it around, put a little flour on top. Okay, sometimes if the dough sticks underneath, you just want to add a little extra flour. Now I like this rolling pin. I give it a little flour. Start from the center of your dough, row to the north, row to the south, row to the east, row to the west. North, south, east, west. You may go north, south, northeast, northwest. All right, mine's sticking, so I'm going to add a little flour underneath. Toss it back. A little flour underneath here. Toss it back. May need add a little on the top. Alright, that looks good. Now, to measure your pie dough for your pie pan, just put your pie pan upside down on your dough. If it's about a ½ inch or an inch past the size of your pie pan, you know you're ready to put your dough in your pie pan. Alright, and to start that process, also, first make sure that you brush off all the excess flour. You don't want a whole lot of excess flour on your pie dough. Just go ahead and brush it off. Now begin to roll your pie dough on your, and if you have excess flour underneath here, definitely want to get it off. Go ahead, roll it up. See, it had stuck just a little bit, but that's okay. Just brush off the excess flour. Now you have your pie pan, and just roll it onto your pie pan. You may handle it, lift it up, but be sure not to tug and pull on your dough. If you do, that can make it tough. So just scoot it right down into your pie pan All right, and now you're going to have this overlapping on the edges, and that's fine, but make sure you get your dough down into your pie pan. All right, without stretching your dough. All right, now if you have little holes in it, that's fine. They can mend quickly. And the beauty about homemade pie crust is it's never going to be perfect. But now what I do along the edges is I tuck my edges in. That way I don't waste any of the pie dough. And I'll go back and flute later and I'll show you how to do that. Also, what you could do, you could use a fork. The old fork method works. You can just take your fork and go along the edges, but just get it flipped under. I flip my dough under. You can cut it off if you wish. I've got all of my pie dough tucked under. Some people take a fork and make these little indentions like this with a fork. Now, what I like to do is I like to flute my edges. Just pull one finger back and take your thumb and your forefinger and pinch together. So lie this finger down, take these two fingers, push towards the center of your pie dough. And just keep going around till you have this completed. But now, you don't have to get fancy. You can use a fork or you can just cut off the edges, whatever makes you happy. And again, remember the beauty to your homemade pie crust happen to be that they are never ever perfect. Well, there I go. I'm at the end, but I'm going to go around again just to polish it up a little bit. If your pie recipe is calling for a raw pie dough, now this is ready to fill in with your fruit filling, your pumpkin filling, whatever pie. It could be an apple pie you're going to bake. But today I am going to be baking my pie shell because the pie I'm making does not require a raw pie crust. So I'm going to put this in the oven on 350 and bake it for 18 to 24 minutes until it's golden brown. Also, remember, before baking a raw pie dough, make sure you put a couple of little holes in it with the end of the fork. This way it won't puff up and it'll stay flat in your pie pan. Alright, to the oven. I've baked my pie crust for 20 minutes and the golden brown of my pie crust looks just right to me. If you'd like it a little browner, leave it in the oven a little longer. There it is, my baked homemade pie crust. Listen, give it a try. And remember, don't fuss about it. It doesn't need to be perfect. That's the beauty of your homemade pie crust. So give it a try. And again, thanks for watching. This is Deronda with Foods 101. And please subscribe.